And if there's someone from the university who is Roma, I'm here for you. There is a way for us to overcome that gap that's always been poor.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That stereotype that is always there with surrounding Roma people. And I think just really making sure that there's much more positivity surrounding Roma.
That you have a voice to speak to
Definitely.
everyone.
That's really important. Yeah.
Welcome to Series 3 of the Student Connect podcast. I'm Tiffany, a third year media student, and I am joined today by our guest host, Nakwanda.
Hi, I'm Nakwanda, a third year aeronautical engineering student at Staffordshire University.
This podcast is created in association with Staffordshire University and hosted by our student content team.
It is a student-led podcast which shares the experiences of students progressing through university education and inviting experts from a variety of life topics.
In this series, we are exploring cultures to grow our understanding and deepen our knowledge about the diverse backgrounds that make up our community.
We want you to help shape the series, so if you'd like to join us as a guest, email us at comms@staffs.ac.uk or drop @staffsuni a DM on social media.
Along the way, we will endeavour to share our honest stories, sometimes too honest, to help to educate and discover more about other cultures.
There may be some sensitive topics discussed. We feel these are important to share to raise awareness of issues.
If at any point we use incorrect terminology, please be rest assured that this is part of us educating ourselves and is not intended to cause any offence.
Without further ado, let's get started.
So, first of all, there's been a bit of a switch up today. You'll notice that Danny is not here. He is currently busy with his work placement, so can't make today's episode. But Nakwanda's come to the rescue and is going to be our guest host for today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me again.
Are you excited? You've been a guest on the podcast before, and now you're on the other side. You're asking the questions.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about
I'm
that?
actually excited. It's a new experience, and I'm happy to experience it and learn a new culture from Mario himself.
Absolutely, it's going to be good fun. In this series, we are recording amongst some awesome places across Staffordshire as we discover more about cultures and backgrounds from across our community.
Today, we haven't left campus as we're here in the campus's mock law courts, a fitting location for today's guests who we'll introduce shortly.
Today, we'll be learning about Romani culture from our guest law student, Mario.
The Roma is an ethnic group originating from northern India, now dispersed worldwide but primarily found in Europe. They represent the largest ethnic minority in Europe, estimated at 10 to 12 million.
But before we meet our guests, we want to share some of the historical facts about the Roma community in Mario's words.
Upon arrival in Europe, Roma endured approximately 500 years of enslavement in Romania. Although this period coincided with the abolition of slavery in the United States in 1865, the impact was limited. Even after the formal end of slavery, Roma continued to face exploitations working on the lands of their former owners.
The Baro Parajmo, meaning the Great Devouring, or the Roma Holocaust, is another critical chapter in our history that often goes unmentioned in discussions of this tragic event. Approximately 1.5 million Roma from various European countries were subjected to extermination.
Post-war, and persistent to this day, Roma continue to grapple with killings, violence, forced sterilization, forced segregation, evictions, and extreme poverty. These events, rarely discussed, have forged a robust sense of cultural identity and resolute commitment to preserving our heritage.
So let's give Mario a warm welcome. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and introducing yourself onto the podcast, please?
Yes, of course. Hello, guys. I'm Mario. I'm a third-year law student at Staffordshire University. And I'm excited to be here with you guys, talking about our Romani culture.
To begin, can you tell us in your own words, what is the Roma culture or community?
Yeah. In my own words, I would probably say Roma people are usually really mystified.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misunderstandings and just people really not knowing what Romani really is. I mean, if you tell someone that I'm a Romani, they say, oh, Romanian. Do you know, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
So,
It's very different.
yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit about your background of being part of the Roma community?
Yeah, sure. Both of my parents are Romani.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a Romani family and I grew up in Slovakia. So to really elaborate on really what Romani people are, we are, as you said also in the introduction, largest ethnic minority group in the Europe. And I think if I want to describe Romani people, I would describe them as really resilient,
strong
people, really fighting towards a change, but really sometimes not been able to actually have that change. So I think this representation of Roma people is really much needed.
Yeah, definitely. And so what would you say is the traditional way of life for Romani people?
Yeah, traditionally, Romani people are really closely lit with families. So it's really family orientated. I think, again, I would say there's a lot of misunderstandings of Roma people. People usually think that we are nomadic, but that's not really the case anymore. Mm-hmm. So we live in houses, but historically, Roma people love to stay together. So within a one house, you can have Romani people who are like more than 30 or 40 people living in one house.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's loads of different cultures within Romani people, so it really varies accordingly. Yeah.
What values would you say are important to Romani people and a Romani way of life?
Mm-hmm. I would definitely say resilience. That's a really big value for us. Historically, we were oppressed. We are still to this day discriminated against. And so I think just a really strong will to make a change for us, but also show people that we are not what you perceive us as.
Yeah, it's a really good value to have, I think. Yeah, definitely. And so Romani people have a rich cultural tradition in storytelling and folklore. Could you tell us a bit more about that, or even one of the stories, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. Storytelling historically within the Romani community has been essential. So due to our oppression, we were never allowed to be educated. And so storytelling became a part of preserving our culture. But then also it's a fun way of actually bringing the community together. So I remember usually whenever there's any big events, the older generation from Roma people love to tell stories. I also got this book with me. This is the name with the Rose of the Roma, and it's a little bit about the history of Roma people, but it mainly focuses on poetry, all from Romani writers.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I would like to read a little bit from this book. This is like a prose, and it's called "I'll Sell You My Tears." Now, just a little bit backstory to this. My father used to tell me this story in Romani, and I've recently found this book, and I found that there's an English translation of this story, so it just brings back loads of memories.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. I think, again, just a little bit of a backdrop from this. This is from the perspective of a Romani child who's oppressed and faces discrimination. And he uses lots of metaphors. I think you'll really understand it once I read it. It's quite sad, but I think it's, especially from a child's perspective, you can see that historically, like the oppression of Roma people. So, I'll sell you my tears. If it's true I'm still small, my heart is big. If it's true I'm still a child, I hurt like an adult. Other children my age love each other, they play, but I have to cry. And since I possess nothing else, I will sell you my tears. I see the children around me. They don't have tears to sell. Their tears of pain fall to the ground and mix with the mud. I take the tears from my cheeks and sell them to the people who don't know how to cry. But how much can I ask for them if I can't ask for consolation? And if someone loves me, I won't sell him my tears. I will give them away, for then they will be tears of joy.
Wow,
That's
really powerful.
I found this was really powerful when I first read it, because it really just shows how much Roma people long to be understood and loved.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes, it was really beautiful. Nice. I really liked it. Could you tell us some misconceptions about Romani people? You mentioned that you're not nomadic anymore, you settle. But what other misconceptions would you say are out there?
I mean, there's quite a lot of misconceptions. Touching upon the nomadic lifestyle, historically, Roma people had to be nomadic. It was not like we chose. I think there's this misconception that people think that Roma people live this bohemian lifestyle, and they just want to move around a lot. Yeah. But historically, due to our oppression, we had to be nomadic in order to escape loads of bad situations, such as slavery and oppression, discrimination. It was a way for us to survive.
Yeah. So you moved because of persecution. You wanted to find places that accepted you and you could thrive. That makes a lot of sense.
So can you tell us a little bit about your life in Slovakia and what was that like?
Yeah. My life in Slovakia, so being 100% honest, Slovakia is one of the countries which really, I don't know how to put it into words, the way Roman people are viewed in Slovakia, it's really difficult to explain, to be honest. I speak about oppression a lot and discrimination and racism, right? But there's lots of segregation in Slovakia of Romani people. We are really discriminated against. I mean, I grew up in a firstly marginalized community within Slovakia, but then my family moved to a neighborhood which was surrounded with the normal Slovakians. I grew up in a family of 4.
Yeah.
That was before my sister was born in 2010. I'm 23 right now. So back in, what was it? 2006, 2005. That's the most years I remember being in Slovakia. Our family is just coincided with lots of love. You know, my parents instilled a sense of really strong will in order to be perceived as good people. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think love is a really good word to describe Romani people and the way Romani families really try to instill love within each other and from the outside world as well.
Yeah. I suppose in a sense, like, if you're going through like these sort of things in this sort of like way of life, you need that family strength, don't you, to kind of
persist and to continue moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like, if you talk about the issues within Romani communities, you can always mention segregation, racism, discrimination, but from a Romani perspective, it's like, okay, these things are happening, but what can we do to actually change things?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think this is a really strong sense of trying to break that stereotype of Romani people as well. I mean, I'm not sure what your views were on Romani people, but if you talk about a Romani person, there's the stereotype of, like, you know, criminals, people who steal, and just like this really heartbreaking descriptions of stereotypes of Romani people. So I think Roma people right now are trying to really break that cycle.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in most of Europe, the stereotypes it's so systematically driven into society. It's really, really difficult to break that cycle. And I think media has a lot to do with promoting these stereotypes.
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, before this podcast, I had no education about Romani culture, Romani way of life. But I mean, hearing you talk about it all today, your history sounds so important. And so
something that needs to be respected and valued. And I think more positive not stereotypes, but like more positive descriptions should be said about Romani people, because they shouldn't be treated as like second-class citizens. And it happens everywhere, all over Europe. I remember it was a politician who said that they don't want Romani people in this country because they think that they're just coming here to feed off of like the British economy and stuff like that. And that's not how people should be viewed, regardless. Any type of people should not be viewed like that.
I mean, I think from my perspective, whenever I speak to people about my culture, they usually either have no idea what Romani people are, or they have those stereotypes. You know what I mean? And so from my perspective, I tell them, if your parents tell you that all Romani people are criminals and they steal, from my perspective, if I met someone who's not Romani and and I've been discriminated against by him, and you know what I mean, have said racial comments to me, should I then be holding the stereotype that all people like that are the same?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Not fair.
It's not fair, definitely.
And as well, do you feel like I know I'm privileged in the sense that I've never really had to worry about this, but kind of When people say those sort of things, it's kind of, how do you kind of decide whether to correct them or not? Because at the end of the day, it's not your job to correct people's mindsets. It's not your like, they should be educating themselves. So how do you, if you don't mind asking, how do you kind of like react to those sort of situations?
I think early on from my childhood, my parents were scared from the outside world, so they told me and my brother to really deny our ethnicity. So I think I am even more privileged because I have a lighter skin to most Romani people, and so I think it was easier for me to hide my identity. And that can be really hurtful on its own, because you're denying who you are. Exactly. You're denying who you are. And so I found that it's important to speak with people and try to really change their mindset, I would say, because the way we perceive ourselves is completely different to the way other people perceive us. So if I tell you I'm a hard worker, I'm kind, I love people, I love all different races, you know what I mean? I believe in unity. That could probably be, maybe not change your mind, but you could be like, oh, he's trying to make a change.
Yeah.
What does it mean for you to be Romani? What are some cultural identities that are important to you? And like, what languages do you speak, or language do you speak?
So in our home, we speak Romanes, and that's the Romani language. I think for each Roma, it's different. For example, Roma people who were born in Slovakia usually have to speak Slovakian, so they speak Slovakian and Romanes in their home, and that's different throughout Europe. So if you're born in Italy, you speak Italian and Romanes. And that's where also our language is a bit mixed as well, because in each place that you live in, you really adapt that language, so it's usually mixed as well. And I would say our Romani identity is really important because we were denied our Romani identity for so many years historically. It's become really important for us to really try to preserve who we are.
And it's really good that you came on the podcast to show everyone your culture and stand for your cultural identity as well. It's really good.
In terms of like getting your identity back, would you say that there has been any changes in terms of being able to own that, or would you say that it's still a lot of people still find it quite difficult, and there's still, I mean, obviously there's a long way to go because, like I say, more people need to be educated on the subject, but sort of, has there been a change maybe more recently? Is it getting easier, or is it still quite tough?
I think it really depends on where you are. So I can say that in Slovakia it's difficult to really have that Romani identity because so many people live in conditions which it's really, their worldview of the world is really limited. So it's really difficult for them to speak about the Romani identity because they are scared of being discriminated against and so on, right? But then in places like the UK, it's completely different, I would say, because I think in UK has such a vast culture. You know what I mean? There's people all around the world from in here. And so it's much easier for us to say, okay, I'm Romani. That doesn't really mean much because there's other people from different countries, you know what I mean? There's other ethnic backgrounds in here. So it's really, depends where you are. But I think what's important is that more Roma people should come forward and speak about our issues, because I think one thing that is missing within our community is, I mean, we have unity, like I said, we love being around each other, but I think we need that powerful force to really make a change.
So do you mean like activism, like a central point of activism, like for example the Black Lives Movement? So stuff like that, you want people to come forward and as a collective stand for stuff? Is that what you're trying to say?
Definitely.
Okay, that's really good.
And just to touch upon activism, I think even in Europe, if there is activism and Roman people do activism, the news media outlets just
diminish
it, basically. They make up stories, or they either say only Roman people are doing the activism. And I think it's also
other cultures
need to really
agree. No, I do agree. Yes.
It's got to start at the top.
And work.
Once the media gets like loosens their like strains and actually decides to be nice to people, then that's when the change will come, isn't it?
There's one thing that us Romani people say to each other and to each other basically, and it says "Opre Roma," and that means stay resilient, stay strong. And that's a saying that we always say whenever we meet someone. We say "Opre Roma."
Opre Roma.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really nice. Thank you for sharing that with us. So you just touched on being in the UK, and obviously you study here. So we were just wanting to know kind of why you chose to study here, and specifically Staffordshire University.
So I think I moved here with my family in 2012, and most of my education has been in the UK now. And I think I chose Staffordshire University because we live in Stoke, and culturally we love being, like, we are really close family, so culturally you have to stay with your family even when you're in education, so it would be a bit difficult for me to move around a lot because I need to basically have to be with my parents. It's like a really strong cultural thing for us, so. But I love Staffordshire University, so
that's really good.
Let's have one.
So is music like a big part of Romani culture? So can you tell us more about that, if it is important?
Yeah, music is really important in our Romani culture. Again, through our history, Romani people use music as an outlet, and they also use music as a way of making money. So I think, again, the media really does not emphasize the way in which Romani people have contributed to the music in Europe. For example, I'm not sure if you're aware of flamenco in Spain.
Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah, that comes from the city of Andalusia, and loads of different communities were marginalized. And Roma people came up with the flamenco style of music. Yeah. And they really honed in onto that style of music, but it's never really mentioned.
Yeah, it's usually credited to Spain.
It's usually credited to Spain. And I think music is, whatever the occasion is, music is just a really, like, an outlet for us. So it has to be. Yeah. There has to be music everywhere. And again, touching up on the media, there are countless of Romani people who are contributing to, like I said, to flamenco and all the genres of music, which predominantly come from Romani people, and that doesn't get mentioned. And I think the media should really emphasize the virtuosity that Romani people have from music.
Are there any Romani artists that you can think of, just off the top of your head?
I mean, there's quite a lot. Well, I would say Jan Bendik he's from Czech Republic. He's a really, I think he's one of the people who are making a big change in the Romani community and really pouring all those stereotypes behind them and moving forward.
Yeah. Do you have any, like, traditional instruments? Like, what would the music sound like? What instruments do they use? Is it mostly vocal or? So,
if you have a guitar, I think you're all set in the Romani community. Guitar, you're all set. And I think also vocalization. So even if there's no particular instruments, they really use their voices a lot.
That's good.
So, like we spoke earlier about the sort of storytelling tradition that Romani people have. Do you reckon that kind of correlates with their music? Like, do they use music as a tool to sometimes get those stories across in a different way? Definitely.
I mean, if you listen to Romani music, the lyrics particularly, they just talk about our history, and you learn about things that you didn't know. Like, I learned about things that I didn't even know myself from hearing all those musics. I think it's a really strong tool to really emphasize. Like, you can really build up on your struggles, but it's also used in a way that it can be positive as well. That's what I love as well.
Definitely.
Are there any celebrations in the Romani culture that you participate in or that you know about?
Yeah, I mean, weddings are a really big part of Romani culture. Families usually save up quite a lot of money for weddings, and they really, it's like an emphasis of pride when your children get married. So I think that's a...
Do the Romani weddings have any sort of traditions or specific kind of, like, I don't want to use the word stereotypes, but is there anything that you kind of have that you go, that's a Romani wedding? Like it's your kind of trademark. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would say if you see people wearing loads of gold,
Okay.
I mean, gold is a really big emphasis in Romani culture. Whatever the occasion, Roma people usually love to wear gold, so it's like a sense of pride and strong will. So there is gold and loads of food, loads of music, just good vibes.
That's good. Good vibes, love that. So April the 8th is Roma Day. What does this kind of signify and how do you celebrate that?
Yeah, April 8th is the International Roma Day, and it signifies, it's a way for us to really talk about our history, educate people, but also celebrate our culture.
Yeah.
So on that day, we usually, within our families, we talk about our history, talk about the things that we went through or we are going through, and then also building up on being proud of being Romani. And just celebrate it quite a lot. I think there are now much more things that people can look forward to. Like on this day, there's Romani organizations that try to bring in loads of Romani artists, speakers, writers, and they really can show people where they came from, what they are trying to do, and what change they are trying to do, loads of activisms. And it's just a way for us to really put emphasis on Roma people. But I think the most important part is educating other people about our Romani culture.
Okay. Do you have any key traditions or rituals that are important to you and your family?
I think one thing that is coming to my head right now is I don't know how to say it in English, but in Romani, you can say that and that means that so if, for example, it's like a cultural thing in Romani people, if you meet with someone and they may give you like a stare, and you may say that, oh, I'm somehow not feeling well. It's like a really weird thing to explain, but like to fix that, Romani woman used to get 2 matches, light them up, get water, put it into a pan, boil it, put it into a glass, and then you have to drink it 3 times, and that would apparently make you feel better.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure if I believe in that, but it's like it's a good like traditional thing.
It's just a traditional thing that
Yeah.
you do. Yeah. Okay.
And so do you celebrate any major holidays within your community?
Yeah, I mean, we usually celebrate like most people do Christmas. International Roma Day is like the most important holiday for us, I would say.
Yeah.
Even though it's not really a holiday, but it's a link to like cultural tradition. So as a family, we just all get together, and I think like in Slovakia there are now much more like concerts and different types of ways in the media as well that Roma people can now watch. It's like a get-together thing.
Okay.
But I think the problem is that in the UK, people don't really know about this day, so it's difficult to really, I don't know, do something with it, you know what I mean? I mean, like in school, we were never taught about International Roma Day.
Yeah, I don't think I was either.
Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of difficult to really make something happen, but I think...
No, I agree. Yeah.
When I applied to university, I made a conscious effort to really emphasize that in Romani. Because for such a long time, I didn't, you know what I mean? And that was really difficult for me back in Slovakia. And I spoke to this with my parents and I was like, Mom, Dad, I'm proud of who I am. You are proud of who we are. And there's no need for us to really deny our identity. And for people who try to oppress us again or discriminate against us, you know what I mean? That's their problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What did it feel like to like be able to own that identity and kind of, excuse the phrase, but kind of tick that box as it were, and like really be like, yeah, this is me. I'm gonna essentially tell the world, like own it. What did that feel like personally?
I think really scary, to be honest. Yeah, because you never know what can you expect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think what happened firstly when I first had my first class here in university, I remember that really vividly because we were sitting in like a circle and we had to introduce ourselves. And so I stood up and I was like, "Hi guys, I'm Mario, I'm from Slovakia and I'm a Romani." And you know, just saying that word really brought in so much positivity to me, but also positivity from other people. I saw that they really either didn't care, do you know what I mean, or just accepted it and be like, "Oh, okay,
they
that's
just
cool."
agree.
Was it quite like, was it a bit of like a breath of fresh air, and was it a lot taken off your shoulders?
Definitely. And I think I would encourage much more Romani people to really do this as well. I mean, if we didn't deny our identity, what can we expect from the other world? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't start making this a small change, but can make a big impact.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I agree. Yes, it can.
Can you share any unique family customs or stories that have been passed down through the generations?
Family customs, I would say, it's like a tradition now. If you meet someone who's non-Romani, you've got to shower him with gifts and loads of food.
Right, okay.
It's like a customary thing right now because it's a way for us to show that we care about other people as well, and we want a respect from them. It's like a unity thing within communities.
Oh yeah. There are many misconceptions that we've mentioned previously about Romani people, but especially when it comes to the word gypsy, which is used in the UK to describe Romani people. Can you tell us a bit more about this and why it's a problem?
Yeah, definitely. So the term, there's three terms actually. GRT, which stands for Gypsy, Roma and Travellers. And that's how we are recognized here, right? But the lines become blurred because Gypsy is used to describe Romani people, and historically the word Gypsy is really problematic because it's been used to oppress us for centuries. And so in our language, the word Gypsy does not exist. Do you know what I mean? So we refer to ourselves as Roma, but then I would never take away from anybody who wants to refer to themselves as Gypsy. But I think education around the word Gypsy is important. I think people need to realize that it's a racial slur. And I think another problem in the UK is that, like I said, Gypsy, Roma and Travellers are like on the one group, and they are all on the subheading of white. And that's really problematic because historically Roma people are anything but white, and so it's like taking our history away from us by referring to us as white. But I think again, education on the traveling community is also important because Gypsy, Roma and Travellers are all different ethnic groups, so I think there needs to be much more education on who is who and which one represents.
See, I never knew that. So that's really interesting to learn from my point of view. And that's something I'll probably look into as well. And just so then if I ever hear anybody using it incorrectly, I can kind of say no.
I knew the word was an insult, but
I did as well.
A lot of people just use it as a term to call Romani people that you kind of think that it's the actual term, but it's really not, so people shouldn't be using it. Yeah,
I think it much more like historically, Romani people have been given so much names, like in Spain, Gitano, and in Romania or Greece, it's called Tzigani, which means outsiders. So like we're always given different names, but we are never referred to as Roma, which is who we
wrong.
are. You know what I mean?
Exactly, it's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of touched on this briefly, but how do you feel about the portrayal of Roma communities in the media? Or more so, because we've kind of mentioned it, what are ways that they could kind of change the way they represent the culture? Like, are there any mediums? Are there any specific kind of maybe, I don't know, films, shows, or even just the music that you think that they could use as a positive tool and influence?
I mean, if you want to talk about building a positive influence, you can always just search up, go on YouTube and put Roma music, you know what I mean? And you can see all the positivity surrounding our music. But from the media aspect, Roma people are invisible. They are either invisible in that sense that our culture is never represented, or if it is, it's always misconstrued or just really not shown in a way that is positive. So I think that needs to change. And I think for me, the way media portrays Roma, if something bad happens or if there's any criminal activity, racially profiling people as Roma just really builds on that stereotype.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's really something that needs to change. I think there needs to be much more positivity, but it's really difficult and hard for Roma people to really, I don't know, have a say, if you know what I mean. Like, we are not the ones who can make such a big difference if there's higher ups in the media or in any part of the world who are not making these types of changes towards Roma people.
Yeah.
I think, again, because I'm a law student and law has always been like a big part of what I wanted to do, segregation in the educational system, especially for me, is really important. For example, in Slovakia, there's children who are put in special schools, and it's a consistent issue. There are legal cases which happened, and it's been said that indirect discrimination happens, and the educational societies really need to make this change surrounding segregation, but it's still not happening, and children are still being placed in special schools, and they are still segregated. I think it's a really big issue that I would like to touch upon because it's important, and I think more people need to know about this.
Yeah.
Is that one of the reasons why you studied law, why you chose to study law?
Definitely. If I want to make a change, I have to get through law school first of all, but just really learn about the law and see how I can help.
How you can make a difference, yeah.
Definitely.
That's a really good thing to do, that is, I think. It obviously shows that you really think about the impact that you can make. And it's really good to see that you're owning that and you being like, I am going to make that difference, because, as you say, a lot of people don't do that. And it's difficult, but you kind of have to make that step, don't you?
And I think as well, during our conversation, I mean, most of the things that we touched upon are really sad and negative. So I think it's important to talk about these things, but it's also really important to talk about our culture, like I said. Look into our music, look into our Romani writers, and see what type of things that Roma people like and how they express themselves, their stories as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why is it important to you to share about your culture and about your community? Why are you taking such a strong stand to it? I know that there's a lot of hardships, but is there anything positive that you'd like to share? Is there anything that maybe inspired you?
That's a great question.
I think one thing is our parents have always fought really hard for us to overcome our circumstances, and so they've been a great source of inspiration for me. And then just seeing the way Roma people are. I mean, we are really loving people. We are really passionate people. Like, passion is also a really strong sense of who Roma people are. Really passionate. I think I want to bring that much more forward to the wider community.
Yeah, that's really good.
So we've only really got time for one more question now. So just as a kind of like end and a bit of a summary, what would you say are your biggest hopes for the future, either short term or maybe even the much more longer term? What would you say your key points are?
I think just addressing Roma issues much more widely in the media is really important, but not just in the media. Having conversations like this is really important because we can bring awareness, and people from university can learn. And if there's someone from the university who is Roma, I'm here for you. And this, you know what I mean? There is a way for us to overcome that gap that's always been put. Do you know what I mean? That stereotype that is always there with surrounding Roma people. And I think just really making sure that there's much more positivity surrounding Roma.
And that you have a voice to speak to
Definitely.
everyone.
That's really important. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been really interesting.
I've
Thank
learned
you.
a lot from you. Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for having me.
No worries. So first of all, we'd like to say a massive thank you to our guest, Mario, for openly sharing so much about Romani culture with us.
We've learnt so much and we're happy to have him on to talk about his culture.
Thank you to Nakwanda for jumping on and being an amazing guest host today. You've done a smashing job.
Thank you, it was really good. It was good fun.
We'd also like to say a big thank you to our listeners.
Thank you to Staffordshire University Media Centre, podcast producer and production editor.
If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, then please send us a direct message on social media.
To find further support at university, you can visit staffs.ac.uk or your Student Connect team.
Don't forget to tell us what you think about the podcast so far, what you'd like to hear on it, or if you have any questions for us, tag us at StaffsUni or #Student Connect Podcast on social media.
Goodbye and
Bye.
see you next time.